Hello YouTube, hope you're doing well. Today it's opening traps again, and this time on the Budapest gambit. So the Budapest gambit is not a very common opening. It's probably quite unsound, to be honest. However, with black you have the opportunity to set a lot of opening traps. So it can be a good choice once in a while to rely on those tricky lines to trap your opponent. We're going to see 3 or 4 of those lines, so let's start with the first one. So the Budapest gambit, first we must state the obvious. It starts with the moves knight f6, c4, and then e5. A pawn sacrifice, really a pawn sacrifice. And the first one we're going to see is, well, of course, white captures, d takes e5, and that's the main move by far. And black plays the main line here, knight to g4. We're going to see another move which is probably not as good as knight g4. And you see that the idea here, of course, the main idea is to recapture on e5 with the knight. Well, of course, white won't let black do this as easily. But in the meanwhile, there can be some interesting lines and interesting traps. So this time white already plays a bit off the beaten tracks and plays the move queen to d4, after which black can play the interesting d6. And I say interesting because it protects this knight on g4 and at the same time proposes a pawn sacrifice, a real one. Black won't try to recapture that pawn anymore. And moreover, there is still the threat knight to c6, attacking the queen, followed by a recapture on e5. So the logical move here is to play e takes d6, and black plays bishop to d6. So it doesn't look that bad for white, actually. Black has only 2 pieces out, but already the situation is quite dangerous for white. So of course the obvious threat here is to play bishop to b4, winning the queen, because this queen is at the moment unprotected. So the normal move here by white would be to play knight to f3, developing your knight on a good square, protecting the queen, and after which with black you castle and you have a nice lead in development. So probably it's not worth a whole pawn, but you still have a playable position. But you see that this pawn on g7 is undefended. What if white tries to capture it? Now what do you play with black? There's one winning move, bishop e5, and suddenly you realize with white that you don't have that many squares for your queen. Actually, after bishop e5, the only possible destination square here is g5. All the other ones are you're losing your queen. So you play queen g5, but after queen takes g5, bishop takes g5, black has bishop takes b2. Oops! And white is of course losing this a1 rook, and the position is very bad for white. So this is a very good example of a successful trick in the Budapest gambit. Let's look at another one right now. So d4, knight to f6, c4, e5, the signature move of the Budapest gambit, d takes e5, knight g4 again, and now a much more standard move by white, bishop f4. With black you play knight to c6. It's perfectly normal, you want to reinforce the attack on the e5 pawn. Just for you to know, in the end, usually what happens in the Budapest gambit is that black recaptures the pawn, but in the meantime white has some time to set up a good position as well. So if everything happens normally, white ends up with a small advantage out of the opening. Now, white plays knight f3, protecting this e5 pawn again, so making black's life harder, and black plays the bishop to b4 check, and this trap occurs after knight to d2 here. Now black needs to put more pressure on the pawn e5, and white has to be careful. So black plays queen e7. So you see that in this gambit, the development of the black pieces is quite harmonious. It makes black's life quite easy to find the right moves. And right now, of course, the threat is to recapture the pawn. And if white plays a3 here, black can set a very nice trap, a3. So it seems like black has to move the bishop away, of course. But black surprisingly plays knight g takes e5. And now, do you see what is coming? It's quite a standard pattern. If white plays a takes b4, what is the winning move here by black? Of course, knight d3 checkmate, because this king cannot move, of course, and you cannot capture with the pawn because this pawn is pinned by the queen on e7. There is a similar opening trap in the Caro-Kann defense, by the way. So another nice trap in the Budapest gambit if white plays carelessly. Next one. This happens when black plays a different third move. So e5, d takes e5, and e4, knight to e4. It's probably not as good as knight g4, but it is quite tricky as well if white doesn't know it. White plays a3, which is a very good move, by the way. It avoids a lot of ideas based on bishop b4 check. But black can develop a nice initiative now. d6, it's a pawn sacrifice, very risky. E takes d6, bishop takes d6, we've already seen this, and knight f3. Knight f3, which is natural looking, but immediately losing. Try to find why. And the correct move is knight takes f2. Because after knight takes f2, you're winning at least the exchange. White can move the queen away, and it's probably the best possibility, and after which, of course, with black you capture on h1, so you win the exchange. But if white takes the knight, what happens? You have to find the second move of the combination, which is bishop g3 check, and with a discovered attack on the d1 queen. And of course there is no better move than capturing on g3. Queen takes d1, and with black you're winning in this position, of course. Now a trap when white declines the gambit. d4, knight to f6, c4, e5, d5, why not? Bishop c5, and mistake already, bishop g5 by white. It's already a mistake. Try to find what's the winning line for black in this position. The correct move is bishop takes f2, and there are some similar ideas in the Italian game sometimes. So if you're playing the Italian game, you may be familiar with this kind of patterns. Black could play knight to e4. Of course, if white captures on d8, then you have bishop to f2 checkmate. But after knight to e4, white can play the bishop to e3, and it is not so crushing. So the most precise move is to play bishop takes f2, after which you win a clean pawn with black. because the king takes, and you make your discovered attack, knight to g4 for instance, king e1, and queen takes g5. And it's good because on the next move the knight would probably jump to e3 on a very good square. So really a safe +1 with a very good position to follow with black. That was the last opening trap on the Budapest gambit. I don't recommend you to build your whole repertoire based on a few traps within the Budapest gambit, but you know, once in a while it can be nice to get a free win in a few moves. So the Budapest gambit is a very good weapon for that particular purpose. I hope you enjoyed that. The next video will be, I think, about the Caro-Kann opening trap. So I hope to see you there on the next video. See you soon. Bye bye.